The Northwest Highlands, a spectacular setting for my first attempt at stalking a red deer stag. My guide on this adventure is to be Lee McNally, nature warden, deer stalker, writer and photographer. His home by Loch Torridon is surrounded by tame deer, including the first twins ever recorded. Lee spent his life studying deer and must know as much about them as any man in Britain. His adult deer can come and go as they please, but they seem to prefer to stay around. Along with other examples of local wildlife, they're a great attraction for the tourist. The ground Lee looks after is part of a deer management area, along with 3 neighbouring estates. A yearly estimate is made of how many deer must be culled to preserve a balanced population, and each estate does its share. This year, Lee will kill 12 stags and 25 hinds. Now, September is the time for stalking the stags. The hinds are stalked between November and March. With 16,000 acres of mountains in his care, Lee leads a pretty active life. In summer, he leads parties of visitors over the hills and finds time to photograph his beloved golden eagles. In winter, it's deer stalking and mountain rescue. Strenuous work, but a way of life many will envy. It's a bit odd having an audience of deer when you're sighting in your rifle for deer stalking, but they don't seem bothered. Making sure your rifle is spot on is an essential part of stalking. The last thing you want is a wounded deer. The end should be swift and humane. The sport is in the stalking, not the shooting.
You get it as steady as you can on that, because you're firing from a knoll on the hill. Yeah. And just get it, center your crosshairs on the cross on the target, and that's it. And we'll see how she goes. Okay. Take one round at a time, and we'll spot the shots. Okay. How much ammo have you got?
My new BSA had been very accurate when I tried it at home, but it's always worth checking it again after a long journey. Sometimes a knock on the scope can put it way out.
Okay. It's to right and high.
It did actually fire a little bit to the right, but I think it's me.
It's about 3 inches lower, but it's in the same line to the right again. If it's firing consistently like that, I think we'll have to alter the scope. Yes. Well, you just take your time and fire when you're ready, and I'll try and spot it. If not, I'll go up and spot it. You want me to try a shot just to see if the rifle
Yes, you try one through it and see. Did you get it right before we start holding it? Maybe make us.
I think you're just to the right of centre. It was firing a bit high and to the right. But after adjustment, a few more shots, we were ready for the hill. 2nd of September and the 24th of October. Is that just for stags?
Stag season starts.
With Pony and Pony Girl following on to carry down the hoped-for stag, we were off on a 2-mile stroll to where the real work would begin.
It lasts until October the 20th, and that's the end of the stag season.
Do you select what you want, the one you want before you go?
Yes. Priority is always to take out anything that's got any obvious injury for a start. And then you look for any beast that's obviously weak. With hinds, you look for a hind with a late calf, because that means that the calf probably won't survive the winter. And then the hind could be a habitual late calfer, so you take her out as well, both the hind and the calf. And as far as the stags go, well, here we usually look for bad heads and try and get rid of them, and leave the better heads to breed on the ground.
How many on this piece of the park have you got?
Well, on 16,000 acres here, we've got round about 300 hinds and calves. That's the stock we have. And then the stags come in at the mating time, usually about the end of September. But for most of the year, it's just hinds and calves we have here.
So you try to keep them down to that sort of number?
We keep them to that level, just in keeping with the grazing on the hill. It's like farm stock, if you like. A field will only hold so many cattle or so many sheep. And it's the same thing on the hill. Any given area of hill will only hold so many deer.
So culling is absolutely necessary in a park like this?
Oh, definitely. In fact, in every part of the Highlands it's necessary, because there's no natural predators on deer. We had the wolf at one time. We had lynx too. We had brown bear. We haven't any of those now, so
you've got to do the job instead?
We've got to do the job ourselves, exactly.
They've just started to come in, the stags, at the moment?
Only just started to come in. The rat is just starting here. And because it's just hind ground here, well, we don't get much in until the rat does start. And then the place is flooded with stags. I think a lot of people have that idea that the stag is the leader of the herd and that he keeps them out of danger and all that sort of thing, but it just doesn't work that way. A good stag will stay with hinds until a stronger stag puts him out after a bit of a fight. Or if he's a really good big stag, he'll be able to keep hold of the hinds for perhaps 3 weeks. And by that time, he's probably mated with most of the hinds, getting a bit spent and tired himself. And he'll just leave and go back to the glen where he winters in.
Typical male?
Typical male, that's right. And the stags are very greedy as well. They would monopolise all the best feeding. And the hinds and the calves would have to make do with second best. So it's really better that the stag should live in a separate part of the hill to the hinds. They're very greedy animals, really, selfish animals, stags.
Do they fight? Do you watch them?
Yes, oh yes. Sometimes it only lasts for seconds. You hear antlers clashing, and by the time you reach where you can see them, they're finished. They're a really good fight. Oh, it may last for a quarter of an hour. I saw one up here 5 years ago. Lasted for a good 20 minutes. By the time they finished, I was sitting just within 15 yards of them watching. Finished up the roll of film I had. Fight ended in a draw. And they had about 40 hinds watching.
So they split it and went different ways?
The hinds saw me and they left. And when the stags had finished fighting, there were no hinds. So they had to do it all over again.
We left the pony below, and it was off up the mountain. Straight up the mountain. Lee makes it look quite casual, but he sets a killing pace. The procedure was climb hard for a while, then spy out the new ground. Then do it again and again. And after what seemed like 2,000 feet straight up into the clouds, we started to see deer.
Two of the hinds down in the bottom there now.
We saw hinds at first, and then above us we saw a stag. But he was moving away from us over the top. At first I found it very difficult to spot deer at all. And then I began to recognize that particular shade of brown to look for. But there was nothing to suit us, so it was on up the mountain as another storm swept in from the Atlantic. The storm passed, and I was higher and more tired than I'd been for a long time. The deer seemed as fresh as ever. I'd hate to get caught up here in really bad weather. One lad did last winter, and Lee had to help bring the body down.
When he got to the top, did he think that he had come off the edge, did he?
He thought he was on the end of the ridge, and instead of that, he was just about the middle and came down the wrong way and fell through the outcrops. All of that salt water, that's all a sea loch there, Loch Torridon. That wee island there in the middle, they call the Mouse.
The Mouse?
The Mouse. Used to be very good sea fishing at one time, but the
Well, it's like anywhere else
it.
up here with sea fishing, they've trawled it to bits, haven't they?
That's right. Aye. Might as well have a look down here and see what's what. Oh, I'll use the bigger glass.
There is a stag below us,
Here, down there,
and he's dragging his back leg, most probably injured in a fight. But he and his hinds were clearing out. Our scent must have swirled down to them.
I heard tell, Lee, that there's more deer now in England than there was in the days of Robin Hood. Would that be true of Scotland?
There's certainly probably more in Scotland now than there were in the past, even 200 years ago. Even though people have got modern rifles and that sort of thing nowadays. But a lot of the ground, round about 1870, deer were encouraged to colonise after the sheep were taken off. Sheep proved uneconomic in the Highlands. And they made deer forests instead. And at the present moment, they reckon there's something like 250,000 red deer in Scotland. I'm afraid the prevailing wind here is southwest, and that does mean that in most cases we have to go out the glen and then work our way back. Alternatively, we could go by road right round the mountain and come right in from that end. But it really means a longer walk to do that, so it's better to do it this way.
Yeah, but it's better walking home. I'd rather go out in the car and walk back than walk out and walk back again.
Not just shows how soft present-day deer stalkers are getting.
Well, I'll tell you, it's hard work. It's harder work than I thought.
Well, at one time, they walked to the hill, every mile of it. Sometimes they rode in ponies, mind you. You might have a string of 3 or 4 ponies going to the hill, taking the people out and then taking the stags back. Nowadays, of course, they're using a lot of tracked vehicles, argo carts, snow tracks, that sort of thing.
That's to take the softies out in.
To take the softies out, exactly.
But we're doing it the hard way because we're 2 fit lads.
A bit of an exaggeration, maybe. Only one of us was fit, and it wasn't me.
Lee, there's some hinds on that face up there, just below the point of rock. Can you see them?
Yep, on that green face,
It comes down just below.
Right, we'll have a look at them. Quite a group there right now. But they're too strung out. If a stag had that lot, he would have them all together in a bunch. Keeps trying to put antlers in hinds' heads this time of the year, and
they're
it
all
just doesn't
stretched out
work.
on the line, right from that green bit at the top, right away down that rocky outcrop.
Yep. Well,
What's that behind that? Look a bit further to the right. It's a long way off. Do you think we're getting near enough to get a shot at him?
well, depends how settled he is. He looks quite settled at the moment.
Be a bit of a problem with all them hinds up above, though, won't it?
Oh, I think they're far enough away not to bother us. Right. That's something at last anyway. We can go for that and just see what we can do.
To make a good approach on this stag and keep the wind in the right direction meant going down half a mile, along half a mile, then up half a mile. I was seriously beginning to wonder whether I really wanted this deer. This was it. He was somewhere up ahead, maybe 200 to 300 yards away. We didn't know where he was, but we hadn't seen him leave. Lee took the rifle because it would be mostly crawling from now on, and I don't suppose he relished the idea of me stumbling along behind him with a loaded rifle. Over every ridge, I expected to see him, but no sign. Surely he must have gone. Then there he was, lying down behind a rock. We would have to creep round to get a shot. My heart was thumping so hard, I was sure he'd hear it.
Down to the stone here, Jack. Above me, above me. See him down there. Now he's lying down.
Well, I don't have a go at him from here.
Right at the back of the head.
The head.
About midway down the neck. And that'll hit the spine, the back of the neck. Still dead.
It moved.
No, head's dropped.
I thought he would jump.
No, not with a head shot. No, definitely not. Body shot would have
I'll
done.
tell you what, I'm glad I was close as this. I couldn't have gone any further than that.
Well, that's the easy part of it. That's it.
Dead as a dodo. Where'd you hit him?
Back of the neck.
Well,
Took the
that's what I
spine.
did. I must have got him.
Yep. Instantaneous, so he didn't feel a thing. Never even heard a shot, in fact. They usually go straight through. 270's a heavy caliber. Poor head, well off the ground. Better get him cleaned up then.
You gonna go to him now, are you?
Yep.
Well, I'll let you do that. I haven't got a clue, but that sort of thing, I'll sit and watch.
like shooting something in the back, actually. I didn't like that. But you said take them, so I took them.
Well, if you're going to be shot, you'd better be shot without knowing about it than knowing about it.
How many have you shot yourself?
Well, I haven't kept exact count, but between stags and hinds, something between 2,000 and 3,000, I would
2,000 and
think.
3,000? So it's just like a job of work day every day?
Well, that's just what it is, really. Managing the deer. Instead of killing them in the slaughterhouse, you kill them in the hill.
What do you feel like when you shot your first one? I felt a little bit apprehensive. I still feel a little bit apprehensive about it.
Me, I felt very happy.
On your first one?
On the first one, yeah.
Suppose it's why you're brought up.
Well, I suppose we can get them dragged down now.
I volunteered to go and get the pony. It was miles away, but it seemed a better idea than dragging that stag down the mountain.
Up here. Get up here, Jim. Come on, lads. Come on. I've had to want her back in the rock. We'll put a jacket over her head before we... Now, the legs go to the back, right?
Which way do you...
You put the haunches over first.
Hey?
Haunches over first. You keep hold of the antlers and make sure they don't touch the pony. Right, heave. That's it. Right, I'll take the antlers now, Jack. That's fine.
Can I pull anything for you?
No, just
Got it.
fine.
You've got to feel a bit sorry for the stag, but I suppose he'd had every chance to escape. It wasn't like a bullock in a slaughterhouse. There's no way out for him. Anyway, I'd done it. My first stag. I think I was beginning to feel a bit pleased about it now.